Hello and good morning. Welcome back. Welcome back to those Guerreros. As promised, I have for you today my eighth graders curriculum. Going back, I showed you what we're using for my youngest for first grade. I only have two kids for those of you who don't know. So today I'm going to show you what we're using for our eighth grader. And so, of course, starting off, we have our Bible curriculum. Now, some of you will just, have your morning biblical time, and that's what you guys use, and that's fine. But for us, we like to do both. So we start off our morning together, and we just sing a song or two, and then, of course, we pray. Someone will read from the book of Proverbs, and then we break off. Okay, so we don't have a whole morning basket, if you will, but we do spend that time together. Okay, so let's see here. So first we have, which is what she's working on right now, because we've already started our school year. Okay, and it is basically life principles from the woman of Acts. Okay, it's really cool. It just really focuses on the woman mentioned in the book of Acts. It was important for us to, especially for my eighth grader, growing up, especially in a Christian home, sometimes we really see the patriarchy of it all. And so I wanted her to see that there were great women in the Bible, right? We even have two female apostles who are mentioned by name. So a lot of people don't know that, but it's in there. It's a great study. I've been reading along because it is that phenomenal. So just zoom in again for anyone who may be interested. Okay. Also, like I said earlier with my son, just with my daughter, same thing. We did not finish all of our Sunlight last year. But luckily for me, I purchased D+E because we were trying to run through American history before starting high school. And we were hoping to maybe fit in F, for those of you who don't know, or W. Sunlight goes by age ranges, not by necessarily what grade you are in. And so different letters stand for different subject matter rather than necessarily what grade you're going into. So D+E is 2 years of American history split right in half around the time of the Civil War. And so we finished most of the D, but we didn't really get into E. And so this is the Bible curriculum that she would have used towards the end of the year. We're going to use it this year as well. This should take us about 12 weeks, maybe more, maybe less, just depends on how fast we get through it. So it definitely won't take us the full school year. So we have In Search of the Source. Okay. And this basically is the story of Neil Anderson. And he was a missionary to the people of Papua New Guinea. And so we'll be getting into that. Those of you who don't know, Sunlight definitely includes at least one book, if not two, about missionaries every year. Which brings me into history, right? That's the Bible's like part of HPL. Okay, and so we have our history, the H. Like I said, we did get through the D portion, so that leads us to the E portion. And so here is her textbook, okay? And it is called The Landmark History of the American People. Now, this book has been rewritten by the owner of Sunlight. He went back to the original creator and said, hey, can I make this a little bit more kid-friendly? Because they were using the original for a while. How to put this? The original is kind of dry. The original really wasn't written for kids, but the subject matter was so good. And so it has been rewritten or re-edited to make it a little bit more alive for kids. Now, we actually really like this textbook because it's still not a traditional textbook. It doesn't have the questions and the answers the kids have to go back through and try to figure that out. No, it's really written in a more engaging format. And so for us, especially when it comes to history and science, it's more important for our kids to really understand. We're not into the memorization of facts necessarily in terms of remembering the exact year that something happened or remembering all of the names, right? Of course, there are key names that are really important, and we do talk about those things, but it's really important for us as a family to know what happened and understand why it happened, and to understand, especially that some people who necessarily are known for being great and courageous and godly people did some really ungodly things. And so it's important for us to have those conversations. We believe that, as the saying goes, if you don't know your history, you are doomed to repeat it. And so there are some things, of course, that we don't want to repeat. And especially if you're familiar with American history, there are definitely some things that we don't want to repeat. And so we like this book. It gives us a great understanding. Now, if you are into curriculums that require your child to remember facts and things, there are some great curriculums for that. That's just not for us. So we're not knocking it. It's just not what's for us. Now, of course, going along with that, there are the readers. I'm not going to go over each and every book that we are reading because, of course, we do add in some readers as well. For instance, for our read alouds, I read during lunchtime, or I read independently with my kids while they draw or color, or something that's quiet where I know that they can still pay attention. And right now we are reading Who Was Frederick Douglass. It's an easy reader, but it's an introduction to a person that I think my daughter needs to know about. And so we're just reading this. We'll be done with it in a week, right? We started it right at the end of our last school week, and so we're just gonna jump right back in. We'll be done by Tuesday, okay? For those of you who don't know, my work schedule is changing, and so with my work schedule changing, our school schedule is changing. So we'll be schooling from Saturday. Well, Friday's a school day for us, but it's not an academic school day. That's the day we fit in all of our electives, so that we can keep great consistency throughout the week when we hit the books. So we do our academic lessons Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. Okay, and then we break Wednesday and Thursday because mom needs those days as rest days. The other things that we're working on this year is learning our states and learning our presidents. Just because I realized, we're in the 8th grade, she's gonna be going to high school, and we really haven't focused on those things. I know, shame on me, 100%. My fault, just slipped right under the radar. And so with my son, I'll probably do it in like 4th or 5th grade. But yes, so we are doing our states. So we have this fun little coloring book, and she's kind of, coloring while I read. And she loves art, so she's not just running through it. She's like taking her time and doodling as I read. We also have flashcards, states and capitals, but these flashcards are really cool. It doesn't just talk about the states and capitals. It kind of reiterates the same topics as her coloring book, and the 50 states don't know much about the 50 states. So it's kind of covering the same things, but in a flashcard way. We kind of do 5 at a time because we're kind of doing like 5 at a time in this book. Now, once again, we don't do every subject every day, okay? Our Bible we do every day, and then we do math and language arts 4 days a week, and then we do our social studies 2 days a week, and we do science 2 days a week. So when you're seeing all of this, don't think that we're doing all of these every single day. I do allocate from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. for a school day. To some of you that may seem like a lot, but remember, we're only doing academic work 4 days a week. We don't start before 9. I'm of the belief that kids give you their best when they are well rested and when they feel they're ready to go. So we don't start before 9. And of course they can start before 9 if they want to, but I don't demand for them to be in my presence before 9 a.m. And then I also feel that there does need to be a cutoff time, right? Because we do want our kids to, be able to spend time on things that they're passionate about. And so our cutoff time is 4, whether they finished everything that I require them or not. That goes back into our Fridays, right? So Fridays we do extracurriculars, but we also will catch up on schoolwork if we need to catch up. I've said it in past videos, I'll say it again. When I say catch up, I'm not comparing my children to what they may be doing in a public school setting, but I am saying we have certain goals that we have for the week or for the month or for the year. And so we don't want to get behind because we want to make sure that we complete what we set to complete. And so that is what I mean by catch up. Especially if we're going on like a vacation or something, we don't want to leave in the middle of a math lesson and now the kid can't remember anything when it's time to come back. We want to finish that last quiz or finish that last test for the section. We want to finish whatever book we're reading, so we want to be caught up in that manner, if that makes sense. And so, yes, this is the next book that we're reading, and it really just goes into some fun key facts, talks about the smallest state, the largest state, which state produced the most presidents, who was the last to become a state, all kinds of fun things like that. I have the most tornadoes, but also, of course, states and capitals, state birds, state flowers. So that's that. Once again, we're not spending a lot of necessary time on things like this. Our spine for history this year is the landmark history, okay, of the American people. This is our spine. This is what we're constantly going to go back to. It's a little bit meatier, a little bit more age appropriate, right? But we don't look at books as that's for a certain age group. No, if it has information that we need and we can make it a little bit lighter, a little bit more fun, a little bit more engaging, that's what we're gonna go with, especially when we talk about supplements. Supplements are not something that we're looking to bog down our child. Also, of course, we wanna look at all different people groups, all different types of groups that may be here in America, but being of African descent, of course, we want to focus on African American history as well. That is for my home. It's not that we don't look at Asian American history. It's not that we don't look at Polynesian American history or Spanish American history. In fact, my kids are half Dominican, so we definitely do look at that as well. But we know that the Dominican people also come from the African diaspora, and so this is going to work well for that as well. And when we get into world history, which is next year, we'll look at all of that a little bit deeper. So we have here, this is America's Black Founders. And so this really focuses on some of the great Africans who were either brought here by slave boat or who were already here, because not everyone came to America on a slave boat, right? We do know that before the slave trade began, there were some Africans who were brought here as slaves, but then there were also some who had freedom. And so this really gets into the meat of some of the great things that happened here, created and done by our great Black African ancestors. So that's that again. Okay. Of course, like I said, we are also focusing on our presidents this year. And so I love the DK books. They're produced by the Smithsonian Museum. And so this one goes all the way through, I believe, President Barack Obama. Okay. And it is just going to cover all of the wonderful presidents up to that point. We will also, of course, talk about the 45th and 46th president, because he is our current president. But I think that will be covered enough under current events because it's still happening with number 46, President Biden. And so, speaking of current events, we do two things with my 13-year-old. One of the things we've always done is we've watched Trevor Noah because he brings laughter to some various and sensitive topics that sometimes you just need to laugh or you'll cry. The other thing that we're going to be adding in, which I wish we had added in earlier, and my 6-year-old will be joining in, is watching CNN 10. It is unbiased and it is just raw facts of what is happening today in this country and in this world, and with no opinions, which I think kids need. They just need to know what's going on, but they don't need to necessarily hear from the left or the right about what they think. And just let them grow up and develop their own opinions and their own feelings towards things and their own views. So we've talked about history and we've talked about Bible. Now let's get into language arts. Now, once again, we do a lot of reading. We read, my daughter has independent readers that she's responsible for reading. Those are books that she picks out, and I trust that she'll read 30 minutes a day. Sometimes she reads more. She's even been known to finish a book in a day. Then she has required reading, which are books that I pick out because I'm like, hey, you need to read these books, either for the information or because they're classics, or, I just think it's something that will be beneficial to her, and so I require it. And then, of course, we have our Sunlight readers, which I do a lot of those as read-alouds because, honestly, she doesn't like all of the books that Sunlight picked out for American history. It's just not something that she's feeling, and so it becomes really a burden to her. And we like education to be fun, definitely not a burden. And so if I can get that information to her, that means that I have to put them in our read aloud books, then that's what I do. So for English, of course, she has her some like literature, and like I said, she's doing all that reading. But then we have this as sort of like a textbook, and this is everything you need to know to ace language arts for middle school. And so we're kind of using this. It's great. I'll do a flip through if anybody's wanting one, but it talks about, different sections, right? Of course, there is a grammar section that deals with phrases and clauses. There's language that deals with figurative language and word relationship. We also have a reading fiction section and a reading nonfiction that really tells them what they should be pulling out of that. And then, of course, a writing section, which we're really going to be using in our fourth quarter. So, which brings me to fourth quarter. We are actually going to be doing our first real literary analysis, preparing for high school, and we're going to be using Beowulf. So we have our copy here, and we have our little one of these like spark notes here to help us and guide us. And she'll be writing a lot this year, just preparing for high school because she's going to be really writing a lot. With Sunlight, going back to that for high school, we're going to be jumping right into some of the higher levels. We're going to be skipping quite a few because I think she's ready. I don't see the need to do some of their F and W. J is not even something that we considered for her because she's not science minded, something that we'll probably do with our son, but not for her. So yes, this is what we're kind of using as our spine for language arts. And then once again, we're not doing everything every day, right? So English she would be doing 4 days a week, but she won't be doing vocabulary every single day. This is vocabulary, okay, from classical roots. Now, with that said, she won't be doing this every day. We picked this out because she wanted to try it. In the past, we've always used Wordly Wise, and I figured if we're gonna try something new, let this be the year, so that way she can tell me at the end of the school year how she liked it. If she didn't like it, then we'll go back to Wordly Wise for high school. Vocabulary study is very important to us so that we can prepare for those SATs and just, not be trying to cram in vocabulary at the last minute, but something that she's been covering the whole time. The other thing we're using, 180 daily teaching lessons, and this is grade 8. And we really like this, let me see here, because it's not monotonous, right? They teach a lesson, they get to the point, and then they have the child do it. And so I'm going to tell you what it says. I'm going to give you an example from day 87, and it talks about capitalization. So it has them fix a sentence that needs to be capitalized. It goes over punctuation. It teaches them a rule about punctuation, and then gives them one sentence that they have to fix. It goes over an analogy, and each day is a little bit different, depending on if they're introducing a new concept or not. But they go over analogies, and so they give one problem for analogies, and the child has to do it. Same thing for nouns, they go over parts of speech, and like one section about parts of speech, page 87 deals with nouns, and so they give some examples. Looks like they're giving 2 examples here, and then one problem that they have to fix, and then sentence combining. So they're on this one, it looks like they are giving 4 sentences, and the child needs to combine it into one. So I'll just show you what it looks like. See, there's just one quick day, and I expect this to take her 15 minutes. Vocabulary, more so, I give her 30 minutes, depending on, what lesson and such that we're doing. If we're doing vocabulary from here as well. And then for writing, it depends on what stage we're writing, right? Because some days it might just be that she's doing a quick draft, or she may be brainstorming, editing, or actually writing the paper. So of course those take different times, different types of papers. If it's just a 5-paragraph essay, all those things taken into consideration. And we do try to schedule heavier writing on days that other coursework would be lighter. Like, we don't try to schedule a heavy writing when we already know that she's gonna be doing math for an hour and science for an hour. Like, that would be silly. So speaking of math, so we actually are using 2 texts for math, and that's because math is not her strong point. And so we are using everything you need to ace math. And my silly crazy tail took the time to match that up with the life packs, 8th grade math. And so whatever she is learning in life packs, that's what I'm using this book for. I'll be using this to teach her out of. We will do this together every single day. Every single day we will do this book together. Where with life packs, she will do independently, kind of like as homework, and will also be grading like the self-test as quizzes and the actual exams as tests. So life packs, I showed you with my son, but he's using them for Bible. They come in 10 little booklets, and then in the middle, I've already ripped out the test. The tests are found in the middle of each life pack. And so if you look at your school year being about 10 months long, then you can look at it as you will complete one life pack each month. Okay. And of course, they do try to make them a little colorful, a little fun, but at this point, she's in the 8th grade. They're not going all out trying to, the purpose is to teach them. And so there are about 3 self-tests or 3 quizzes. We grade them as quizzes in here, and there's gonna be 1 test in each life pack. We also, to help out, have this little, just kind of like a supplement, quick notes here. So if she was to forget a formula or forget, how to graph or forget, exponents or powers, rather than trying to look back, or find a life pack from, 3 months before or prior, she can just flip this open and have that resource. Now this video is getting kind of long, but we use a lot with our 8th grader, right? Because the point is to learn. And, early elementary is really introduction. Middle school we look at as more as still an introduction, but we're going to dive a little bit deeper because we don't want high school to be overwhelming. And so we have for science. So for those of you who don't know, of course, there are a million views on science. This is not to go back and forth and debate with anyone, but we believe in a young earth. And so that's what we teach. And so we will be using a high school science curriculum that teaches young earth. It teaches, biology and chemistry and physics and even general science, all based on the principle of young earth. We are creationists, and so we are preparing her for that. We don't do a ton of science in elementary and middle school. In fact, we're doing a lot more with my son than we did with my daughter because that's where his interests are. My daughter's interests are in the arts and the literature, and so that is where we kind of push her. Speaking of art, we'll get into that really quickly. One of her electives is art. We do art at home, but then she does take outside art classes. And then now that she's older and I feel like, she has a cell phone, she will actually be going off and doing like art camps and such things in the near future. And so, like I said, yes, we believe in having a strong education, but we also do want them to have time to pursue their interests and their future goals. And so with my daughter, we're using 2 books as her science spine. We're using The Young Earth, and this is by John Morris. Okay, and when we're done with this book, we will get into a book by Ken Ham, The Great Dinosaur Mystery. Okay, now we will be supplementing them. And once again, when I talk about supplementing, that means pretty much that, of course, we'll be doing science experiments. It's science, but we'll be using lighter works that help undergird some of the more difficult things for her to understand. Because some of these books are written for adults, right? Or high school students. And so we wanted to make sure that she's able to follow along and get along because, like, for instance, she really hasn't had a strong introduction to chemistry. And so we have this book here. And I believe this is an Usborne book. Oh, yeah, Usborne. And so this is Atoms and Molecules. And it's just going to give her a nice introduction. Let's see, we have like subject radiation. You can see here just a nice introduction on how different things work. Because chemistry is mentioned in these books. And so when they start talking about atoms and stuff, we'll take a break. We'll jump into this. Also, my son cannot wait for these books. They're a little above him, but I got them more so for my 8th grader. And these are, of course, a little bit younger than what this is probably written and made for a 4th or 5th grader. but it ties in well to some of the things we'll be studying. So we have the flood of Noah, because we are of the belief that you can use science to prove the word of God. And so that's what this year for science really is for her. It's really a good study of like the Old Testament, Genesis, and really looking at how the word of God is true, and science undergirds and proves that if you are using the right science, if you're looking at the right geology, if you are looking at the right chemistry and the right biology, and really understanding what the word of God is saying. Dragons, okay, dragons, legends, and lore of dinosaurs, and giants. Now I'm gonna be honest with you, giants, legend, and lore doesn't exactly fit in with what we're studying this year for science, but I figured, hey, we'll have time at the end of the school year, why not add it in, because it'll be fun, and it goes right along with the flood of Noah, legends and lore of survival, dragons, legends, lore of dinosaurs. Why not? So I know that may seem like a lot, but remember, we are year-round schoolers. We have 180 days, and she won't do everything every day. Some things will get through much quicker. Like, I suspect these books to take about 2 weeks, because remember, we only do them 2 days a week. So actually only 4 days of school. And so that is what we're using. Feel free, if you have any questions, if you have any concerns, if you just want to be able to look at a book, if you want to see me do some flip throughs, put that in the comments. I am happy to do that for you.